do government have the power? Do they have the power? Do they have what it takes? Do they have a duty to control price in Nigeria or in any country? That's my question, sir, for today.
Well, Bishop, again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you.
My answer to your question, whether government has the capacity or the power to control price, my answer to it is straightforward: yes, government does. But what matters is, what is government interest? Is government interested in price control? That's what matters. There's nothing government wants to do, and if he has interest that he wouldn't do. That's what it is. And I know that after God, the next power, the next is the power of the state. Now, what we do in this part of the world is that we hide under the umbrella of a neoliberal model and capitalist movement to deceive ourselves, to think that government has no business in business and government cannot control price. That's fallacy. That is faulty intellectual thinking. But then again, those who are always quick to tell you that government cannot control price, I want to ask you, what happened this year? You know, they have the Nigerian Communications Commission. Of course, governments may not fix price, but government can set a benchmark. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Those who argue about the deregulation should know that, of course, the telecommunication companies sometimes this year increased, is it this year or last year, increased tariff. But they didn't just wake up and increase tariff. There were lots of consultations with the Nigeria Communication Commission before that price was agreed on. So it's not also true that government cannot. Of course, government may not fix price for aviation sector. But government, I know that we have Nigeria has a Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
Consumer Protection Commission, yes sir.
Whose role is to step in to address unfair, to regulate unfair pricing. They may not fix the price, but they can also say, look, your price must be reasonable enough. That's what government does. So you cannot say that government will just fold their arms and watch private individuals do whatever they want to do, because government has to step in, because there are two basic laws of capitalism: profit making maximization and exploitation. So the conversation that government cannot come in to regulate price is faulty intellectual conversation. They are not saying the truth. Again, back to aviation sector. There are countries that have given lot of, in the form of state support or subsidy to aviation sector. You know, China is one of the countries that support its aviation sector. If you look at Central, I think if you look at Central and Eastern Europe, you see countries like Slovenia, you see countries like Serbia, and you see countries like Croatia, countries like Albania, and these are countries that give adequate support to their own aviation sector in the form of subsidy or state intervention, and also countries like France. So I am saying, therefore, that this our thinking that we practice pure deregulation or pure capitalism. There is no country in the world, and you know, let me say, there's no serious country in the world that think the way we think. That's we need to have that understanding. Despite the assumption of capitalist movements or the assumption of neoliberal model, countries intervene heavily in critical sectors, such as energy, such as banking, such as agriculture and aviation. These are critical sectors that you need to come in. And I'm saying, therefore, that the conversation about neoliberal model, why people begin to argue that government cannot intervene, government cannot fix price. These are archaic intellectual thinking. And I want to say that even the West, who actually sell the idea of neoliberal model to African countries, that they do not practice that. They do not practice that because their states, countries, their governments heavily regulate pricing and heavily regulate trade. So what I'm saying, therefore, that African intellectuals who embrace market fundamentalist movement, who embrace the neoliberal model, one of the things we are not telling ourselves is that in as much as the economics go on the street to talk about a neoliberal model, I want you to also begin to read or begin to think in terms of what has happened to developmental economics. Why are we not talking about developmental economics? Why are we so concerned about the neoliberal model that that's not talking about redevelopment? So I am saying, therefore, and I appeal to African economics, and economics, and I also appeal to some of the African intellectuals who are also quick to support neoliberal model and who are also quick to argue that the state cannot do business or the state has no business in doing business. The truth of the matter, therefore, is that the primary responsibility of the state is to do business because the state actually exists to manage public resources for public good. That's the primary responsibility of the state. So state has two core functions. One is the welfare of its citizens. Two, security of the citizen, providing secure the lives and properties of the citizens. So two things, welfare and security. So when people say that the state has no business in doing business, that is plain intellectual conversation. And I think that those who find themselves within the policy framework, or sorry, within the policy formulation, within the state policies of the government, should also begin to let the government understand that the conversation about neoliberal model, in terms of intellectual exercise, of course, we allow for neoliberal conversation, for the testing of theories for in terms of intellectual exercise. But in terms of the applicability of these theories to development, we have seen that no country in the world relied mainly on neoliberal model to capitalist movement to develop. The state must come in and play a major role. That's what this is. What and it's also important that we understand. Bishop, and I had told you this thing before. I do not speak economic language. I don't speak the language of the economics. I speak the language of development. So I don't care what they are talking about based on their funny neoliberal politics theories that have not really done any good to any of the African countries or any of the Latin American countries. And I'm saying that we need to have this conversation and we need to understand that development is not tied to any of these neoliberal theories. And the African, the fundamental, the market fundamentalist will always tell you that they always celebrate growth. But the question you ask yourself, whose growth? We have seen more private sector in Nigeria, for instance, but in the emergence of the private sector driven economy, we have also seen more unemployment and more poverty. What does that tell you? We have not seen growth. Sorry, we have not seen development. I think that those who sit in the comfort of their offices and in the comfort of their homes and begin to argue that government cannot control price, they are not saying the truth. Of course, government may not actually fix the price, but government can actually put a cap to say, well, even if you are going to increase your price, you are not going to exceed this price because of this and because of this. And we have seen that. I just made mention of Nigeria Communication Commission, what they do with the telecommunication industries. They would have allowed them to say that 1 minute should be 300 or 400. Why is government coming to tell them they should not exceed the cap? So these are the real conversations we need to have, Bishop. And this is what I'm saying. I am saying that there's no country in the world that really needs to redevelopment, that really needs to turn the tide, that fold its hand completely to watch the private sector run its economy. No country, no country behaves that way. The state must come in. The state must come in. And I just told you, in reality, even if you go into the real capitalist behavior, and I'm saying that government all over in serious countries in the world, serious nations in the world, serious government in the world, government intervene heavily in critical sectors like energy, banking, agriculture, and aviation. I had mentioned this before, and Nigeria cannot be in isolation. So it is not true that these things are cast on the stone. If you see that these things are making it practically impossible for the growth of your nation, or destroying business, or destroying economy, what are you supposed to do? You come in. You see, the Western countries will learn these things from. They do not sit to see and watch their own people go, their own businesses go down.
Thank you so much, Dr. Libati. I really appreciate you for joining us on the program this morning on our program. Thank you so much. I don't have any more things to say. Do you have any other thing to add to the discussion this morning, sir?
The only thing I have to say, let me repeat what I said, and which is that the Nigerian government and many of the African states must realize their neoliberal model, the naked capitalist movement, the market fundamentalism movement they are embraced against governance is not working anywhere in the world. Let's go and study countries that embrace neoliberal in Latin America. Go and study what happened to Chile. These are clear examples that the neoliberal model is not working. We need to embrace developmental economics. We need to begin to talk in terms of development. It is not true that state cannot intervene. And I just gave you clear examples where government intervene heavily in critical sectors. And I mentioned them to be energy, banking, agriculture, and aviation. These are places that government must come in. In short, not only that, government must also come in industrialization. Government must step in to stir industrialization and support the informal sector. These are the roles government must play. This idea of sitting down to outsource governance is not going to help, and it's not going to bring any development, because what capitalism actually does, it makes very few individuals extremely rich and make the larger society extremely poor. That's what capitalism does. And I am also saying that the kind of capitalism we even practice in Africa is boutique capitalism, comprador bourgeoisie capitalism, that do not allow for real capitalism. And even the real capitalism is not even helping. So state must do its job. You can't outsource governance. No, you cannot outsource governance to private sector. This is what I'm saying, Bishop.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Dr. Liberty. God bless you, sir. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.